All right. Uh, Welcome today to another episode of Ford the Rock podcast by The Element. I'm Ed McCullough, director of The Element. And today our guest is Kate Wirth, who is the owner, proprietor, if you will,
Hmm.
and a stylist and everything at Lucette Salon in downtown Rockford. And she's here actually to talk about her quest to find out autism, to uncover what she wrote an open letter to her clientele about 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
I think it was just about a month ago. It was during at the end of Autism Awareness Month, which
Okay.
is maybe that was oh my gosh, maybe
I,
that was April. That feels like
I felt
so
like two
feels
months ago.
it's gone so fast.
Anyway, she wrote an open letter and it caught my attention because autism is being talked about because the health secretary, Robert Kennedy, is talking about it a lot. And I just thought it would be great. We have somebody with experience and locally that can talk about firsthand
Hmm.
experiences. So, welcome, Kate. And let's dive in a little bit. Now, Kate's not an expert. She is aware of her
Yes.
autism, and she's going to speak from her personal experience, but
Thank you. Yeah.
is not an generalized
I
expert.
don't know. I'm still learning a lot. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot that's still unknown about autism. So yeah, I'm by no means any kind of expert. I can only, like you said, speak to my personal experience.
Right. Well, okay. Well, let's start out with the general term that is used a lot is spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Autism is a spectrum, and you just mentioned to me before we started recording that it's not linear. It's more
Right.
of a out of a globe or a circle or
Yeah, I think what's been helpful for me is, yeah, to not think of it. I've seen some education about not thinking of it as a linear, like a straight line from one point to another. You're not more or less autistic. You kind of, it's more of a circular spectrum, and there you fall on different points. If you could imagine kind of a blob, I guess, where maybe some people struggle more with communication, some people struggle more with sensory issues, or and so each within that circle, you might have different points of extreme, or you might have certain areas that are less affected, if that makes sense.
well, yeah, it
So everyone
does.
has a different experience, right?
Yeah, it made sense to me right off from the
Okay.
research I've been doing, getting ready for this. It helped me understand it a little bit better. But what it's basically it's a neurological disorder or
Mm-hmm.
disease. Uh, I would even not refer to it as disease at this
Right.
point. But uh, what were the first symptoms, or what did you experience that made you feel different, or
Yeah.
whatever it was?
So I didn't really suspect that I had autism. I thought I will say my whole life I have always felt like things are seem to be harder for me than they appear to be for other people, that I have to had to make extra effort just to do normal everyday things. And I would say things like that to my friends or my mom, and they would just would be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
um,
yeah, well, can you give
yeah.
us an example, or
Um, I don't know, like it's kind of hard to pick a specific example. It's really just like getting up and brushing my teeth is I never liked brushing my teeth as a kid. I just basic things, a lot of sensory things, I guess, looking back in
with sensory
retrospect.
stuff?
Yeah, I refused to wear jeans growing up. I would only wear leggings. Now jeans are a little more comfortable than they used to make them, so I can handle it. But things like that, just managing everyday tasks, getting out of bed, making breakfast, like making a meal is feels so like so many steps to me. It feels really overwhelming to me. My husband will just he'll just be like, just make a sandwich. And that feels like a whole ordeal. Like if he gets me out if he gets the things out of the refrigerator for me and like puts them on the counter, then I can feel like I can make a sandwich. I don't know how to explain it. It just
Well,
feels,
yeah, but that's what
everything
they,
just feels
that's
like a little extra overwhelming, I guess.
okay. But well, that makes sense to me. Um, well, let's talk a little bit about how's it affected your relationship, like with your husband, or
Yeah.
like that's or how did you guys meet?
Well, if I can, sorry, I didn't really finish the first question. If I can go back to that really
Sure.
quick. I ended up hearing like a story on NPR about women specifically over the age of 40 or 50 being diagnosed late diagnosed with ADHD, and they were saying a lot of things that I related to, and so I talked to my therapist about that.
Oh,
Living
that was ADHD or
ADHD, which is
oh,
also neurodivergence.
right.
So um, they're they're related, I guess, but not the same. So I do technically have um, an ADHD and an autism diagnosis, which makes it kind of even weirder in my brain.
And yeah, just focus on this for a minute
Hmm.
then. And you found this out like at 39, 40, or
I got my diagnosis at 40.
okay. And so when did you start looking for a diagnosis or
Oh, yeah. Probably when I was 38, I first brought it up to my therapist. And she had said, I thought maybe I have ADHD, because I'm very sort of scatterbrained, and, all these other symptoms. And she said, yeah, a lot of what you're saying does kind of track with that. She's like, but you're almost 40, like what would a diagnosis do for you at this point? Like, are you going to take medicine for it? And I was like, probably not. So I kind of just put it off for a little bit. It didn't really, I've already learned a lot of coping skills growing up, so it didn't really seem necessary to have an actual diagnosis. Then I got a different therapist probably a year later, and he thought it might be worth exploring. It might, and I don't know if he intuited that there may be some autism in there. He didn't say that specifically, but he was like, why don't you just get tested? It might be helpful. Then you could see a specialist who could maybe help you um, just manage your symptoms with or without medication. And maybe it would just, maybe things don't need to be as difficult as they are for you every day. It's great that you've learned to cope with it, but maybe it doesn't have to be such a struggle. So, so I was referred to, now I'm forgetting the psychiatrist's name here in town, Jason Soriano.
huh?
I believe it's Jason Soriano was my psychiatrist. So it took a little over 6 months to get in to him. There's a long waiting list, and it's really quite a privilege to get to receive a diagnosis like this. There's a lot of people that just don't have the access and don't have the time, or their insurance won't cover it. So I feel very grateful that I was even able to get the diagnosis. That's a whole other topic, I think. But yeah, he asked me a lot of preliminary questions, and he also said, would it be okay if I test you for things other than ADHD, because I'm suspecting autism. So that was a little surprising to hear. But yeah, I was open to it, and yada yada yada. That was my diagnosis.
Okay, but okay, so when did you have the quote symptoms?
Hmm.
They manifest as a child or
Oh
adolescent
yeah,
or
I'd say yeah. I remember specifically like age 4 or 5. I feel like is I just was crying. I remember I was crying all the time about everything, and I didn't even necessarily. I don't know why I was crying. And then I do remember um, going to a doctor's appointment. I had a rash around my eyes when I was about 5, and the doctor seemed puzzled by it. My mom said, "Well, she does cry an awful lot. Would that be related?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I don't know. It could be." So, I mean, I just constantly was crying, and I felt like everyone around me was just exasperated by how much I cried, and nobody could make me happy. Um, and yeah, I guess just in retrospect, my needs weren't being met for whatever reason. And, not like nobody was trying to meet them. It just
They
was
weren't.
so,
Yeah.
they just weren't.
So it started, in a sense, you started having symptoms very early,
Yeah.
all right, as a child. Now, did that manifest then differently as an adolescent?
I think I learned very quickly because everyone was so frustrated and beside themselves with they didn't know what to do with my crying. I would get yelled at for crying, because it's just frustrating. They didn't know what I needed. I didn't really know what I needed. And so I learned to kind of stop crying. I mean, I still cried a lot, probably more than other people, but I have really suppressed a lot of my natural emotions and natural I guess stims, if you want to call it that. I've learned to suppress a lot of what what I did as a 5-year old because it's unpleasant to be around.
So you really learned, as a result of the crying,
Hmm.
you then learned something else as a symptom, which is suppression of emotions.
Yeah.
So you then also did distance yourself from others, or you didn't create necessarily.
Yeah, I probably did sort of distance myself and um, it seemed like, that I was too much for people.
Now,
And
was it just the crying that was too much, or was it too much emotion, or
yeah, both, I would say.
both?
Yeah. Hmm.
So you felt like that was something that was an issue for you growing up. I mean, like through fifth grade, sixth grade.
Yeah. I was very emotional. I still am. So, yeah, I feel things very deeply, very big.
Okay. Um, now, did so you went through life, and then so you obviously were in therapy,
Hmm.
and but this is we're talking 38. I mean, when did
Yeah, I
you
guess
start therapy?
when you say, did it change at all in my adolescence? Probably around 12 or 13, probably from all the suppressing everything. And I bottled everything up. And so I started having panic attacks around age 13.
Oh, so you had panic attacks,
Hmm.
anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
now I do think some of them definitely were legitimately like anxiety attacks. But since then, too, since my diagnosis, I can see now that a lot of times I've had things that feel very similar to an anxiety attack, but I won't actually feel nervous about anything. I won't necessarily be overthinking or what ifing. It's just like my body will have a physical reaction, I think, just to being overstimulated or just overwhelmed in general, if that makes sense. So it
Okay.
feels kind of like
I
a panic
mean,
attack, but it's just more like a breakdown, if you will.
well, you don't. I mean, how do you describe a breakdown?
Um, so I guess, when I would have an anxiety attack, it would usually be because I was really catastrophizing things in my mind. I was really worried about things. So I would be actively making myself more anxious. Or there might be something like I was on swim team, coming up to a swim meet would make me really anxious. So I might have an anxiety attack about that. I think the first anxiety attack I had, I remember I was at my grandma's house and it was like the first time West Nile virus was in the news. There were so many mosquitoes. I thought I was definitely going to get that and die. So
Oh,
um, my grandma didn't know what to do with me, but my symptoms would be, sort of hyperventilating, racing heart, just feeling very out of control of your thoughts. Whereas now, like, if I'm having more of what I would say like a sensory overload or an over sense of overwhelm, it can feel like a panic attack. I might have like a racing heart. I might feel a little bit nauseous or really cold, but I don't actually feel all the time like I'm not really actively worried about anything. Just more overwhelmed. There's just too much going on that my system can't handle it.
okay. So I'm curious that it was as you hit this period of your life, or puberty and then on to adolescence,
Hmm.
um, and you had some of these symptoms like this. Your parents then send you to somebody or a therapist or anything? Or
Um, I think, yeah, my mom, I probably saw my first therapist when I was 18. Um, my mom was really good at sort of intuitively calming me down, but other people, like it doesn't come very naturally to my dad is not a very soothing person. He does love me very much, but
well, that's one of
um,
the problems with us men, you
he
know.
kind of might have made things worse from time to time. But yeah, mental health is still is going through a process of destigmatization. I would say it's getting
Oh yeah.
better all the time, but so even when I was that age, not very many people went to therapy. So it wasn't until I was about 18 that I did see a therapist, and then I ended up doing actually these cognitive behavioral therapy CDs that were like on an infomercial.
Oh really?
But that's what honestly changed my life, like made my anxiety so much more manageable.
What I mean, how did they were cognitive
Hmm.
therapy sessions on CD disc?
Yeah.
Well, who was that?
Her name's Lucinda Bassett. I don't know if she's still, I mean, she must still be around. She's just a woman who also had really bad anxiety and panic attacks, and she did a lot of research, and she worked with a physician, and they put together this program that basically all the tools that she taught herself and learned to kind of retrain the way that you think about things, your negative thoughts and reframing ideas, helped her so much. She made this uh, audio program.
So this really turned your life around,
It did. I stopped having panic attacks after that, and
oh really?
yeah, and then and I just made it helped me. It helps you kind of see when you might be telling stories to yourself. Maybe you're painting your life in. I don't know how to describe what word I'm looking for. Um, like kind of, for example, maybe if you walk around all day saying, I'm just so tired, like you're just kind of repeating this story to yourself and you begin to believe that you're tired and you can't do XYZ because you're just too exhausted. But so some people kind of joke that cognitive behavioral therapy can be like gaslighting yourself, but it's really, it's not. It's like finding what's the real truth, because oftentimes most people are talking really poorly to themselves and saying negative things that they would never say, that aren't true. You would never say it to your friend. And so it's just re-examining how you actually think, what thoughts you think on a daily basis, and realizing that your thoughts aren't your reality.
That's true. I
Yeah.
mean, I've done some therapy in my time, and
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the big ones, is understanding your thoughts aren't necessarily what's true.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really, you can be making stuff up.
Yes.
Yeah. So, uh, as you moved into your 20s, you had to go to school for uh,
I went
what
to,
you do.
yeah, cosmetology. I went to the Aveda Institute in Milwaukee.
And how was, did you have to move up there or
I did. I did pretty well living on my own, but I made a lot of mistakes too.
how'd you
And
get a sandwich made?
I don't think I made a sandwich. I don't know what I ate, to be honest with you. I was very fortunate and again, very privileged that my parents could afford to send me to school and pay my rent and everything. And I was able to eat out a lot.
Eat out a
So
lot.
I got a lot of microwaved meals I remember going to the CVS on the corner and buying a lot of Michelinas for 99
Oh,
cents.
so, I mean, that was your solution, but that was a
Yeah.
coping mechanism,
Yeah.
was to microwave some dinner for 3 or 4
Yeah.
minutes,
Totally.
and you ate that.
Yes.
Okay. Because that would, I mean, I made a joke about it, but
Yeah.
it's,
No, it's true. It's really
it's,
true.
but it's serious. I mean,
Yeah.
if you keep, if you have difficulty making a sandwich,
Yeah.
You know, so uh, did you have problems with school with learning at all, or is it no, there wasn't sensory stuff
Mm.
involved in that, or
School, even, grade school and high school, I have pretty good like like just basic memory retention. So certain subjects came really easily to me. If it's just like Spanish, like foreign language, just memorizing vocabulary words. Um, Biology and anatomy were easy, like just memorizing muscles and cellular makeup and stuff. But math was always more difficult for me. So there are certain things and that just didn't come naturally to me, and I think math is so fascinating, and I think it's so interesting, and I wish I were good at it, but I'm not. I just am not. But to your point, I guess what I would say is that if it wasn't if it didn't come naturally to me, it was very difficult to study. I'm not like good at studying,
so,
and if that makes sense.
yeah, I've got a little bit of attention
Yeah.
deficit disorder, so I jump around a lot,
Mhm.
and but so but you were good at memorizing things. That was
Yeah.
something that was natural.
Mhm.
So the subjects that you had, whatever they might be, like even cutting hair,
Yeah.
you would remember, oh, this person likes this wave or this cut or whatever.
Yes.
You don't have any problem with that.
Well, it's a little a little more difficult for me to remember interpersonal things about people. I'm better at just facts, but
Oh, really?
yeah, but sometimes yeah, there are clients that when I'm cutting my hair, there'll be something, some kind of cue, maybe the way their hair, the direction their hair is growing, something will spark a memory that I'll say, "Oh yeah, we cut your hair. I did this last times to make sure that it would fall this way." But so there are things like that, but
So there are some things. Well, let's go back to the track where we're at. So you went to
yeah,
is it cosmetology school?
cosmetology.
So you graduated from there, and then you started working someplace, or
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get a job downtown Rockford here. I've been working downtown on Block 5 for my entire career, basically.
oh, really?
Yeah, so it was Five Spa. I started there in 2003, 2004, I guess.
What was it called?
Five Spa.
Was it the same building
It's the
you're in?
same location that I'm in now.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
okay.
lucky to get the same location after they closed. So, yeah.
Oh, that now is that a result? I mean, would you attribute that to the disease in any
Yeah.
way?
I guess now that we're talking about it, it does. Yeah, it makes sense to
You,
just.
you feel
I
secure
feel
there.
secure. I am loyal. I don't need to rock the boat if it's not necessary. So yeah, I guess.
So, so I love the way you laugh. By the way, this is obviously a very personal conversation, and I want to compliment Kate right now in the middle of it, just
Thanks.
for being so honest and things. Uh, so you started working at what it was Five Spa.
Uh huh.
I can't remember who owned that.
Megan Wadley
Who
Megan was the original owner.
Megan was.
She lives in Seattle now.
Oh, well, I don't remember her, but
That's
my
okay.
memory's shot. So what the
Yeah.
hell? Um, but did you buy it from her or?
No, she sold it to a woman named Christy who also worked at Five Spa, and then Christy ended up closing in 2013. And then I was able to buy the assets after she closed.
Oh, okay. So you've been an asset buy purchase.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, now, there's a lot of ways we can go here, but let's stay with. Did you were you seeking assistance from a therapist or any social service
Mm.
worker during your 20s and early 30s, or?
No, I don't think I really was. That, like I said, that cognitive behavioral program I did really helped me so much, so profoundly that I didn't see anyone for a while until probably after I opened my own business, and then it, things just are, it's a lot to manage. So,
All right, so it was pretty smooth sailing
hmm
through the 20s, and when you opened, then you bought a business. Now, was your social life? How was your social life during this
it's interesting. I don't really remember my 20s.
time?
And it's not because I was drunk all the time.
Well, there's some of us
I
who
was
don't
not a big
remember it because
drinker.
we were drunk most of the
Yeah.
time.
Um, I don't know. I just was getting by, I guess. Just
Oh,
I had
really?
fun. I went to parties and stuff, and I met my husband around that time, and we got married, and um, yeah, I don't remember. I just remember working. I was just talking today to Megan, who works with me, that like in 2008, right before the economy crashed, it was so busy. We were so busy at the salon all the time, and I would just come home from work, especially on a Saturday, and I would just plop face down on my bed with all my shoes and coat still on and just fall asleep after work. It was
Oh,
just,
really?
yeah. I was making a lot of money. It was really great, and it was very exhausting.
Okay. Um, so when did you get married?
I was 24. I got married in 2008.
2000, in 2008. You were
Yeah,
24?
I think so.
You
I think
think
that
so? We're not sure about
maybe.
many of the dates here,
I'm
folks.
not good at math, like I said. I'd have to sit down and
Okay.
calculate.
And so, I mean, your husband must have been aware that there were certain things about you
Yeah.
that were exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to ask my husband what he thought. I think he did appreciate about me that I'm um a little quirky and weird. I did have a boss tell me once. She just said, "You know you're weird, right?" She was like, "I mean, in a good way," but I was
You're
like,
weird.
"Yeah, I know." But yeah, I think Keith likes a little goofiness in his life, so
Well, you provide it, so
yeah,
to
exactly.
help.
I'm here to help.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So I got to go back to the questions here. We're way off track.
Sorry.
Well, I had all these
I
questions.
know. They were very thoughtful, good
Very
questions.
thoughtful, actually.
Just scoot back a little more and then pull
Which way?
this one.
This way? Oh, he's going to cut this part out. All right. There. Like that? Oh, now I can talk like that. All right.
Yeah, that way you can look at her and still.
Oh, well, as long as we're cutting, we could take.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You want
So,
to reorganize our.
all right. So let's talk a little bit about social stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, starting with the fact you were quite a lot as a real young child,
Mm-hmm.
but how are your social skills and meeting people
Mm.
and as as you went into what you can remember your 20s, 30s?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think um, I was very shy as a child, and socializing did not come naturally to me. But there was so much social pressure, especially I think being a girl, but anyone, you know, when you're a shy kid, your parents still are like, you have to go, go shake their hand, you have to introduce yourself and be
Yeah,
polite. So you get kind of forced to do things that you're uncomfortable with. And so I do, it brings me to this thought that since being diagnosed, I wonder sometimes how my life would be different if I were diagnosed earlier on. And part of me is really grateful that we didn't know because, my parents forced me to get uncomfortable in so many ways. And, that impelled me to be a more, I guess you could say, highly functional person. Even though everything is still really difficult for me, I have learned how to be more comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, but I think had I been diagnosed earlier on, it's hard to know. At that time in the early 90s, probably it's possible that my parents and people would have really prevented me or used it as an excuse that I maybe wasn't able to do certain things, which I don't think would be helpful necessarily. But
Well, you could have also ended up on meds, if that
yeah,
makes
that's
it,
possible too. Exactly.
which wouldn't have necessarily done you
Yeah.
any good.
I think today, in today's day and age, the more that we know about autism and neurodivergence in general, that having a diagnosis can be supportive as long as you don't sort of use it as a crutch, if you will. I think that you can honor what things are difficult for a child and still support them and give them the support they need to, still push themselves a little bit without getting into overwhelm and extreme discomfort. So I guess ultimately I'm still glad that I didn't have the diagnosis, but it would have made things would have made a lot more sense and maybe felt a little bit easier it would have been easier to go easier on myself.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so about running a bit, I'm just curious now. I know a little bit from the last podcast we did. You described how you ran your business. And let me set the stage here a little bit. I mean, you pay people a regular wage,
Mm-hmm.
right? And everybody gets paid. And they then take on various tasks.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, is that a result? Is that something that you did naturally, or was that a
Um,
result of, this makes me feel uncomfortable. It's a little, it's hard to do inventory. I'm going to pay one of my employees to do inventory. As a,
oh, that's a good question. I think it's more a result of like that fairness and equity is extremely important to me, which is apparently very common in autism.
Mhm.
And to me, it seems like the most equitable and fair way to pay people, to pay them an hourly wage instead of commission or booth rental, because everyone can grow together. To me, it feels the most harmonious, for both the business and the people working there. And then also, yeah, it's not that doing things like inventory is too difficult for me. I could do it, but it is doing that plus payroll plus HR plus everything is just, yeah, it's very overwhelming for any person, I'm sure. But it does feel extremely overwhelming and difficult for me to keep track of all of that.
So it's easier for you, and it's probably tied to the autism,
Yeah.
uh, to have your spread responsibilities out to the
Yeah.
various employees you have. Then I was going to ask, and I just simply slips my mind, but uh, do you have uh, like the vision you created? Uh, shine the, I can't
Find
remember,
your light.
shine your light.
Hmm.
And there was a whole vision statement you had. You want to mention that?
I don't remember the vision statement off the top of my head, but I could say um, that I do think our slogan, Find Your Light, does come from, I don't think I consciously thought of it, but comes from probably feeling um, that I have had to, that I myself and many people have to kind of dim their light a little bit, dim their true essence of who they are. And our goal is to help people live into their best selves and feel like their truest version of themselves. Because I think everyone has something positive to offer. And when you're not living in your full way of natural way of being, you're not able to offer all the good that you could.
So you see it as a way for everybody to have self-expression,
Yeah.
fully self-expression.
Self-actualization.
Well, okay, that's a good phrase. So that's really the encouragement.
Yes.
And you see the walking through the circle, if you will, of autism,
Sure.
as you're coming to terms with yourself and self-actualizing.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that makes sense from a psychological standpoint. Okay, I got to go back to the questions
Yeah.
here. Okay, so what issues would you say did autism create for you that are like long-term issues that are just there all the time? Or the short-term ones?
Yeah.
I mean,
Things that are that it has communication and socializing, like you kind of brought up earlier, are difficult for me. I am more direct and blunt, and I say things that simply, I guess, other people would be much more indirect about, or they wouldn't say them at all. And I don't ever mean, I don't have some, I wouldn't say that I never have another meaning behind what I'm saying, but most of the time I am just saying what needs to be said, in my opinion. And I don't mean that I think, I'm not judging the person I'm saying it to. There's no, it's not an attack. And a lot of, I guess my employees oftentimes feel like, why would she say that? What did she mean by that? She must think I'm, you know,
they'll read into it.
yeah,
Try
they'll
to
read
figure it.
into it, or they think I'm being mean, and I just am like, I just want to know why we didn't make goal yesterday. I
Just tell me why.
I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just, even if it was me, like, did I forget to ask, did I forget to do a deep condition on someone that they were scheduled for, or something like that? Like, help me. I just want to figure it out. I'm not trying to chastise anyone.
So you have that sense of bluntness and directness that is associated with the spectrum.
To me, it's frustrating. It's so frustrating for people to not just say what they mean.
Oh yeah, but I mean, the people who really honestly say what they mean, is a very small percentage. I mean,
Yeah, and I don't say every single thing, right, that comes to my mind, but
well, how much communication problem is there that's difficult for you with your employees?
Well, it's basically the focus of most of my therapy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Hey, Megan, if you're listening.
I'm sure she's well aware. They all know I'm always actively working on my communication skills. So I like to think I've gotten pretty good at it now, but I still sometimes see the look on people's faces when I say something at our morning meeting, and I think, no, we don't. There's nothing to be upset about. I didn't mean, I don't know what you think I meant.
Well, all right. So, but I mean, your employee, I mean, you've got 2 or 3 employees anyway, I know of, that have been there a fairly long time.
Megan and Allie have been there for 10 years, and Alyssa is 9, I believe, this year.
All right, so that's 3 employees and out of how many? How many employees do you?
Oh, I don't know. We've had.
How many?
How many do we have currently?
Well, how many could you? I mean, it's not that big a place.
Oh yeah, we could only have maybe five stylists, maybe 6 if we worked the schedule a
Oh,
certain
okay.
way.
So,
So
and so you have four
yeah,
that have been there not over 9 years.
yes,
Well, you can't be too harsh.
yeah.
I
Thank you.
mean,
I
seriously.
mean,
I
there
mean,
are definitely people who would disagree with you.
well, yeah, but they've stayed through,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm very blessed with the people who are on my team currently and that have been with me for a long time. They're so patient and honest with me, and I appreciate it.
Well, good for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good for them, exactly. Good on them.
How is it with customers, though? I mean,
Yeah.
just an
Okay.
abstract. Let's say a lady comes in and wants to have her hair cut very differently than it is now.
Yeah.
She's going to make a dramatic change for some reason, and you really think that that change is, ugh.
Yeah, I know that I'm not just gonna say that's a terrible idea, you'll look horrible. I mean, it honestly doesn't come up that often that somebody brings me an idea that I think is a bad idea. That doesn't, there's usually a way that I can make it work for them. Or, I'll say, well, let's examine your hairline. If your growth patterns, if you can have bangs like this, maybe we need to make them a little bit longer, or maybe it will work better if you're open to wearing your bangs to the side or something like that, for example. So usually there's some kind of alternative solution. If something's really just out of style or something, then I'll just find, hopefully what I think is maybe a more polite way to say, I think it might feel a little more fresh and on trend if we did it this way instead, but we could still, like, the length is really good. I'll still try to find positives in what they're showing me.
All right.
And then I'll say, if that's what you really want, though, if you want exactly like that, we'll do it. I'm not here to not give you what you want.
Okay. So your focus is on delivering to the customer
Yeah.
what he or she wants.
Yeah, for sure. But I am there to provide my professional opinion also. So
Okay. And
if
it
they
sounds
still want a beehive or, something way out of date, if that's what they want, then after I've explained to them why, maybe another solution would be better, then I'll still give them the beehive if that's what they want.
all right. So that
I'm not saying that beehives are horrible, just to be that's just the first.
just any woman out there
I'm not
who's
here to,
wearing a
I'm
beehive
just
right
not
now.
here to judge anyone.
She's not judging your beehive.
No.
Okay. I love that. Anyway, so you sound like you've developed a tact, a reasonable tactfulness with clients.
I think that my autism combined with all of the communication, learning, and being pushed out of my comfort zone in some ways has really come to be a strong suit for me in terms of working with clients, in particular picky clients, that I can really, I think a lot of people appreciate my attention to detail and how in depth I'm willing to go, and that I don't sugarcoat. I don't, I'm not mean or anything, but I don't sugarcoat if something's not going to.
You're straightforward.
Yeah.
So how much of the I don't know what level of detail you want. What level of detail when you're talking about that's part of autism too, isn't
Sure.
it?
Yeah. Well, for example, I have a guest that's been coming to see me recently, and she just said as she was leaving the other day that she appreciated my attention to detail as she's trying, in her case specifically, to very gradually embrace her gray. She's been coloring it, but she wants to kind of work over time to shear out the level of coverage that she's getting without going too fast and then feeling like, oh my God, my hair is really gray. So I've just been tweaking her formula very slightly every time she comes in. And so stuff like that most stylists might just say, I think, let's just go up a level. I said, I think we should go up 3/4 of a level, like something like that, 1/4 of a level at a time. But for her, that's really what she wants it to be, so gradual. If somebody wanted to move more quickly, I would obviously do that for them too. I don't know if this is tracking.
Well, yeah. Well, no, that makes sense. I mean, that's a very specific. That's a good example of something. here I got to go from I'm covering the gray
Mm-hmm.
to I'm going to wear the gray.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
And
big change for a
she's got
woman.
some other variables in there. Like she wants the amount, like the sheerness of the color to be changed. She also wants to start making it gradually lighter. So we're like kind of adjusting the amount of tone we're putting in and the level, and then and she's also thinking about if she highlights her, there's just kind of a lot of variables to that
There
she's
really are. Yeah.
working through. So yeah. But I really enjoy thinking about stuff like that and getting it exact for people.
Um, let's go back to the doctors and the professional diagnosis and
Mm-hmm.
things. Uh, so when did you start seeing professional help, assistance again after you went through the CDs
Yeah.
that got you through, helped you get through the 20s or whatever?
Yeah.
And you said it was when you bought the business,
Yeah.
and
Probably shortly after I bought the business.
that was from a sense of overwhelming or
Actually,
being
I
a
think I went back to a therapist after um after the 2020 election.
after the
After
2020
or
election.
I'm sorry, 20 when Trump was elected the first time.
2016. Well, there were a lot of people who
There was
thought
a
there would be
lot of
a lot of people went out and
difficult communication happening. So that's I think what got me going back into therapy, and then it was helpful um, for work conversations and everything as well.
so I mean, so you went in, let's say 2016,
Mm-hmm.
and was there a specific focus? Was it communication that you wanted to focus on? Or was it just feel, because you had been diagnosed at that point
Yeah.
with autism? You had ADHD,
I'm
and
trying to remember. I think well, I went shortly after I'd been meditating. Meditation also has been really helpful for me. And I was meditating every single day. I decided, oh, maybe the next step um in my sort of meditation journey would be to do a silent retreat. So I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat, which is actually just over here in Pecatonica. And it was really cool. I'm glad that I did it. It was also like definitely one of the hardest things I've done, and it kind of broke my brain.
it broke your brain.
And to the point that I didn't meditate for probably 2 years afterwards. I was like afraid of meditating, kind of. It was really painful.
Oh, now how were you meditating during the retreat? Was all meditation?
Yeah. So it was 10 days silent, no talking, no reading, no writing, just meditating and eating food silently.
Oh, really?
Yes. Um,
I did probably break my brain too.
yeah, I'm honestly surprised how many people's brains it only helped their brains. But for me, I think now looking back, I think because of my autism, and I'm sure there are other autistic people who have participated in these retreats as well. For me, it was just I grab onto ideas so strictly, and I am so inflexible that I didn't allow myself any grace, I guess, during that retreat to, I just took it so seriously, and maybe it didn't need to be quite that, quite
So you
that
were
serious.
inflexible, you said?
Yeah.
How are you inflexible in a
I'm
reading?
inflexible in my thinking naturally.
Yes.
I have to work very hard to compromise with people. I know that it's important, and so I do it.
Okay.
But anyway, so the retreat is probably what also kind of contributed to me going back to therapy. It just helped it. I learned a lot about myself in those 10 days, and became very self aware about, I couldn't even say what specifically, just needed time to process what I'd gone through, and then, yeah, work on how to communicate people without feeling. I don't know if it's possible to communicate without feeling emotions, but without letting my emotions jeopardize or compromise like take over the conversation.
So you it's almost like a feeling of you're, if I can just try to describe it,
Yeah.
I imagine you just start out with a conversation and it's pretty mainstream, but
Hmm.
then your emotions get in and just take over.
Yeah, it just gets very heightened, and then I can't think clearly, and I can't say, I think as many people do, if you get very upset, it's hard to think clearly and say what you mean.
Okay. So, all right. And that's an ongoing issue.
Yeah, that's my whole life. Yeah,
That's your whole
that's my
life.
whole life.
Okay. So,
But it's not like every interaction is flooded with emotion. It's just,
I would hope not.
you know.
You went back to seeing a therapist in what was it, 2016,
Hmm.
and then then we went on from there, and it was till what? That's God. These are Trump years. Uh, but it was 2 years ago. It was just this year that you were diagnosed with
It was last December. I can't.
last December.
It
Let's
was
say.
within the last year. Yeah.
Okay, so, but that's like 8 or 9 years
Yeah.
after you started therapy again.
Yeah.
So you and the therapist, you had a variety of therapists.
I think I had 3 in that time.
You had three, and you're cruising along
Hmm.
until you hit the last one,
Yeah.
maybe your current one,
Yes.
who said, "Well, yeah, you might have issues,
Yeah.
but were, I guess, was therapy a coping thing for you? I mean, did it help you manage to get through?"
Yeah, it's helpful. I think I also have a strong tendency to get depressed easily, which I is also part of autism. A lot of autistic people get depressed more easily, I think, just because everything is overwhelming and hard, and everything feels hard. Everything feels harder, and then especially if you aren't diagnosed, then everybody kind of acts like it's not that hard. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? So kind of invalidating and difficult at the same
Well, so
time
it's
makes,
invalidating to you.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get
yeah,
this or whatever?
exactly.
Why is this so hard for you?
Yeah, it's not that hard. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I think that kind of lends to falling into depression pretty easily.
So now the
Never mind. I
depression.
don't know if the chemical makeup of my brain also would the neurodivergence itself might be a part. I'm not sure.
Now the kind of depression you're talking about would be. I mean, was it just, well, to use an extreme example, you
Hmm.
just couldn't get out of bed. You'd go home and just couldn't get out of bed,
Yeah, I think
or
I suffer burnout very easily, and that's also a very autistic thing to become. It's just so easy to become overwhelmed and burn out, and then yeah, and then you feel like I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to wash my face. I definitely don't want to go see clients, not because I don't care about them, but that just sounds like I really have to put on a mask, you know? So that kind of thing. Yeah. So
yeah. So
therapy is helpful just to help me remember what matters in the world and what has value, I guess.
I just find it amazing that you are able to run a business. I mean,
Thanks.
I,
Me too.
no, seriously.
No,
I've
yeah.
had people. I've talked about this session you had, and recommended that podcast to people
Mm,
to see it because I thought your description of the way you ran your business and the vision you have and how you describe it just made a great deal of sense.
in the previous podcast we
Yeah,
were
the
recording.
previous podcast we had. And
Thank
I
you. Thank
recommend
you
this.
very
You can
much.
go to our website, theelement.com, and there's a podcast area, and there's
Yeah.
a
You can find the archive.
pre-existing podcast that we had with Kate, uh, and she described. We talked much more about her business there, uh, but it's fascinating how she runs her business, and I'm now enlightened more
Hmm.
and you have a sense of going back to that, and I admire it even more.
Thank you.
So it's just really, truly remarkable. I want to check our questions one more time here.
Yeah.
Let's see if we. Uh, oh, I remember that. There were two questions. With one of the things that's you notice, anyone would notice, and I've felt it myself, not functioning well with peer group. And did that change over time, or what? You felt okay about it in your 20s? Do you don't remember that? Or
Yeah, there are just so many things after being diagnosed that, now that I've had about a year, I guess it must have been December, not of 2024, 2023 was my diagnosis, because I've had about a year and a half to process and learn more about it and myself. But looking back now, I always felt like I was a little behind socially in my friend group. I was a little stunted, in terms of talking to boys or anything like that. Getting certain, I do have a very unique sense of humor, but I didn't always get
so that
their
got you in trouble.
jokes or what, didn't really get me in trouble, but I was just always kind of like the weird, like people liked having me around because I was goofy. I think
Oh, really?
they thought I was funny in a weird way, which I don't mind. I like being weird. It's okay. But yeah, I wasn't on the same developmental level as my peers.
So you felt different from them.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever feel isolated, really alone?
I think I was lucky that I didn't feel super isolated. I was able to hang out enough that everybody certainly has moments of loneliness. And yeah, maybe I felt sometimes, perhaps more often, like people didn't really get me or that I wasn't seen accurately, even amongst my friends. But I had at least a couple close friends that I didn't feel so alone.
All right. So you had close friends that you could talk to about things,
Yeah.
and you could talk to about your weirdness. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
that's what you would talk about.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Hey, can we talk about how strange I
There's
am?
and they say that people who are neurodivergent tend to just be attracted to other neurodivergent people because it's easier to communicate with each other. So I'm sure some of my friends out there, whether they know or like it or not, are probably neurodivergent in some way.
Now, you're saying neurodivergent. I've read that. I
Yeah.
mean, what is the definition of that?
I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert, but it's usually like ADHD, autism, I think
a variety
dyslexia,
of mental health issues.
OCD. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going through. I think we've done a pretty good job of covering most of our questions.
Yeah.
Oh, the one thing I wanted to ask you a little bit more about was, your marriage. You've been married. You were
Yeah.
married at 24.
Yeah.
So that's
That's what we decided. The number. Yeah. Yes, it'll
15,
be
16 years.
16 years, I think. It was 2008 is when I got married, and it's 2025 now.
Okay. So, and we won't do the math.
I'm glad. It's
Because we're both challenged.
It's really
one way or
such simple math that I just cannot. My brain just can't do it
can't deal with
without a pen and paper.
it. All right. But
Thank you. 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
Curving chimes in again with a helpful answer.
I'm so glad.
So your husband has to have been on this journey too. I mean,
Yeah, he is interesting in that he doesn't, in some ways people, it's like, does it really change anything getting the diagnosis? You're still who you are. And I am still who I am, but honestly, it does change things for me. I feel so much validation and understand. It's just helpful to understand why I have felt the way that I have felt for so long. And so that's really been helpful, honestly, and that I can give myself a little more grace, which I feel bad that it took a diagnosis to just allow me to trust my body and what I'm feeling. You know, I shouldn't need a diagnosis to just observe that I'm overwhelmed and
Yeah,
give
but
myself a break, but it does help.
yeah, but at the same time, if you're that's what you honestly are feeling,
Yeah.
and you don't have that diagnosis to say, oh, I'm feeling X, which is overwhelmed, and I
Yeah.
feel, well, this is why.
Yep.
I mean, that makes a tremendous
It
difference.
really does. For my husband, I don't know that it changes too much about our relationship. For him, in his eyes, I am still just the same person,
You're still quirky.
except that maybe now my special interest is autism, and so he has to hear a little bit more about autism because I'm learning so much more about autism and about how it affects me.
Well, now, so it affects you, but to what extent have you seen or learned how it impacts others?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Keith has been really great. For example, going back to the sandwich thing, now it does make more sense to him why it's so helpful for him to get the bread
If
out and cheese and
everything
to
out
get
of the,
everything out for me. So he's always been really helpful in those kinds of aspects. And now he seems even more willing to try to make things a little bit easier on me. But he still will never just he still is always pushing me to, do what I can do, and not allowing me just to shrug anything off, if that makes sense.
well,
He's really good at being supportive in that way. But sometimes, he'll say, I think you can do it. And I'll be like, I know I can do it. It's too much right now. And so he'll give me some space, but he doesn't just do everything for me, I guess.
right. Well, but it sounds like you fortunately married an understanding
Yeah.
guy, so
Yeah,
a very rare guy.
a very rare guy.
Yeah. Now, how about your employees? Has it impacted your diagnosis? Impacted them much?
I can't speak for them, but I think, I have really basically come straight out and ask them to give me a little extra grace to see that I'm trying to be the best boss that I can, and that I've been basically masking and working harder than I needed to be for so long. And not, I'm trying to step back from that so much. It's so exhausting, trying to manage everyone's emotions and my own, and trying to be the perfect boss, which is impossible anyway. But yeah, I've pretty much communicated to them that I'm really trying to lighten my load, my mental load, I guess.
Well, you mentioned perfection.
Yeah,
Is that a symptom of perfectionism? Is that
I
one of
think
the?
that's pretty common. Yeah, I did see an autism specialist after my diagnosis for a few weeks, and the way she said on my first appointment with her that if you think of autism like an umbrella, under the umbrella of autism, there's typically some ADHD symptoms, there's OCD, there's anxiety and depression. So OCD and like perfectionism definitely are part of that too. So all of those things kind of come with autism.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's another way to visualize it.
Yeah.
With an umbrella, and all these things are under it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, where before, I was just diagnosed with anxiety. And now it makes, of course, I have anxiety as a part of autism, right?
Well, yeah, it would.
It's anxiety producing to be out in a world where you don't feel understood or safe all the time, I guess. Not that I felt physically threatened, but just like it feels very threatening to not feel like you belong,
Well, that has to feel threatening.
Yeah.
Just I don't belong. Is yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And we thank you so much for your time and your candor and your truth. And
Thank you so much
and
for
the
the
laughs.
opportunity. Yeah. I wish there were a few more laughs, but
Well, there were
there's one
plenty
more.
of laughs. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's really remarkable, and you run a great business.
Thank you.
And it's great that you have such a wonderful guy you're married to.
Yes.
And I just think it's fantastic. It's sad that it took you this long, to
Mm-hmm.
40, to find out, but
Yeah.
it's better to know, I think.
I do think it's better to know. I'm grateful to know, and I wish more people, I'm sure there are so many more people on the spectrum out there that aren't aware or just don't have that diagnosis, and it can be really empowering and helpful to know if you are. I will say that many autism specialists have said if you suspect that you might be on the autism spectrum, that's a pretty good sign that you are. Most neurotypical people don't ever think about that, apparently.
Yes. Okay. Well, but I hope this podcast gets shared a lot and
Yeah.
shared by people with autism, and maybe we help a few people, which is one of the reasons we're doing it.
Yes.
Is to help people understand what it is, neurodivergence is, and maybe some people get cued in or clued in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity because, yeah, that's basically what I want, is just to help people see another side of autism. And maybe if you relate to it at all, it might help you or someone in your family get some more information.
Well, I think we should also, one last thing we should talk about. You're highly functional.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very clear. I've known you for years. But, I think most people, when they think of autism, they're thinking of the
Yeah.
more limited people,
Yeah.
people with more
With
limited
higher
skills.
support needs.
Yeah, higher support needs. So it can change their perspective
Yeah.
and understand there's an umbrella there.
For sure. And
yeah.
I know that outwardly I am highly functional. I don't love the term high functioning because it just kind of, you don't see the experience that I'm having on the inside of how difficult it is to be that high functioning and how much burnout it can cause and everything. So that just, I used the word high functioning earlier when I spoke to you, so I know that's why you're using it now too. But I did want to talk about, that's using, I guess there's not like a great way to describe it, right? the good way, the most accepted way is to say someone has lower support needs or higher support needs.
Okay.
But either way, I still, even though I may have low support needs, I still need a lot of support, even if that support comes from myself in buying, for example, microwave meals so that I don't have to make my own sandwiches and stuff. Those are all extra support that I have to cultivate and contrive and come up with on my own to get through the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see the distinction.
Yeah.
So it's you have a lower support needs as opposed to being highly functional.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense
Yeah.
to me. All right. So we got the one jargon thing that I
Yeah,
screwed
it's
up.
very, no, you
feel
didn't.
good
No,
about
you
that,
didn't.
Curvin? I
I'm
managed to
glad
make
it came
that
up.
one major screw up.
Not even a screw up at all.
Anyway,
Not at all.
I'd like to thank Kate Wirth for being with us again on Forward the Rock podcast. And this is Ed McCullough signing off.
Thank you.